And so, hello there, and welcome to a new Night of the Movies podcast. And in these podcasts, I talk all things movies and TV, whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm talking about the mixed reaction which Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, aka Indiana Jones 5, has received so far. But before I do that, I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do, that if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello there to my viewers, but heck, you just don't have the time to watch the full podcast on YouTube, and you're not in the right place to watch the full podcast on YouTube right now, then you can also podcast out audibly on Spotify and Night of the Movies on that platform. But if you are already listening on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners. Thank you very much, by the way, because according to my statistics, I don't get many listeners on Spotify. But if you are already listening on Spotify, then you can check this out on YouTube as well at Night of the Movies on that platform. Likewise, wherever you are watching or listening to the podcast, if you enjoy the podcast, of course, please feel free to like and subscribe. And also, leave me some feedback on things I can improve on, and give me some suggestions on things you want me to talk about in the future as well. Topics you want me to talk about in future podcasts, leave some suggestions, because I'd love to have some. You know, I haven't got much suggestions in the comment section on YouTube yet, and I haven't got much feedback in general, whether, you know, I've put this podcast audibly or visually, and I just love to get some feedback of any sort. But anyway, before I get into my thoughts on the mixed reception to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny so far, I should point out that if you are watching this on YouTube, it's only really going to be interesting for people who are watching this podcast. I've got a bit of a different setup. It's not hugely different. The background's still pretty much the same. But I'm in a new chair today. I'm in a new chair, and you're kind of seeing a different side of the room because you guys can't see it, but I've just got a new TV in my room, which is absolutely amazing, and I've got a new TV stand for it, which is amazing as well. But it's meant that I've had to move everything in my room like 2 meters to the side, you know, and so it's all being moved to the side a bit more, so it pretty much just looks the same, the background, but also it's a bit different at the same time. And I just wanted to point that out because it feels a bit weird right now. It feels a bit weird because it's the first video / podcast that I'm doing in this new chair, in a bit of a new place in the room. So yeah, just taking a bit of adjusting too. But anyway, let's get into my topic in today's podcast, and that is the mixed reception to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So first things first, this is my favourite film. My favourite film of the year hasn't even come out yet. This is my most anticipated film of the year so far. It comes out on June 28th in the UK, where I live, so I am dying to see this film. It's been directed by James Mangold, not Spielberg. He's not doing this movie, which is a bit unfortunate. But at the same time, though, you know, Spielberg directed the last Indiana Jones film, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which wasn't that great. It had some great moments. I love the ant sequence in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I also love the chase through the streets early on in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as well. It's got its moments, but that film isn't that good, though. It's not that bad, but it's just not that good. It's meh. And so, although I love Spielberg, and he's one of my favourite filmmakers of all time, I'm fine with the fact that he's not directing this new Indiana Jones film. In fact, I kind of like the whole idea of having new and fresh hands on this Indiana Jones franchise. Especially with James Mangold as well, you know, who directed Logan, which I only watched a couple of days ago now, and I found it to be amazing, to be honest. One of the best superhero movies I've seen in a long while, because it didn't feel like a superhero movie. It just felt like a really good drama with some real great stakes, and it was really intense, and an amazingly performance by Hugh Jackman, and some incredible direction. And also James Mangold directed Ford v Ferrari, aka Le Mans 66. It's got two different names. I think in the UK it's called Le Mans 66. I think in America it's called Ford v Ferrari. And that film was amazing as well. One of my favourite films that I've seen over the past couple of years, came out in 2019. And although I didn't see all the films in the world back in 2019. That was my favourite film of that year. And also, he's directed Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash biopic, which is a very interesting movie. He's also directed Identity with John Cusack, Ray Liotta, and many other famous people in that as well. Great film, really, really good. It's a M. Night Shyamalan film that's not directed by M. Night Shyamalan, but still really, really good. It feels very M. Night Shyamalan, but in a good way. It feels like M. Night Shyamalan's best movie that was directed by him, and in fact was directed by James Mangold. And also, James Mangold directed Copland with Rob De Niro, Harvey Keitel, Ray Liotta. Huge cast on that film. Sylvester Stallone's in that as well, giving probably his best performance. Didn't love Copland, but it's an interesting movie. He also directed Night and Day, the Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz film, which I know wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but I quite enjoyed Night and Day. I enjoyed it. It was far more fun than I thought it was going to be. It's not great, but it's got a certain energy and pace with it, which I enjoyed. You know, I had a good time with that film, and in the end, if a film's entertaining, then it's not bad, really. So yes, James Mangold has directed some great movies, whether it's, you know, Identity, Copland, Logan, and also Ford v Ferrari, Walk the Line, and so on and so on and so on. So, with him directing the new Indiana Jones film, that gave me a lot of hope. John Williams is returning to do the score for the new film. You've got a great 3 leads, in my opinion. I know not everyone's huge on Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but I think she is quite an energetic person from what I've seen in interviews. I haven't really seen her in anything. I've seen a bit of Fleabag, just wasn't my thing. But she got a lot of love for that show, and she seems like she has this energy in her acting, which I quite enjoy. Mads Mikkelsen, who I met at Star Celebration, only briefly, only for about 30 seconds, he's an incredible actor. Just watch him in The Hunt. The Hunt is a masterful film. I think it's currently on Prime Video, and he is amazing in it. Gives such an incredible performance, but also he did a great job replacing Johnny Depp's Grindelwald in the latest Fantastic Beasts film. He's probably the best part of the first Doctor Strange movie, and also he was great in Rogue One as Jyn Erso's father, you know, the guy who created the Death Star. He's been in loads else, but yeah, he's an amazing actor, and I thought he was a great choice for the villain in the film. And also, you've got Harrison Ford returning as Indy. And the thing is as well, Harrison Ford has been very excited about this film. You know, I understand that he's in it, and I understand that he's contractually obligated to be excited about the film and to get people to come to watch it at the cinema and whatnot, but he didn't seem as excited as he did about this when he was doing press for The Force Awakens, you know, and he didn't seem that excited. He didn't seem, you know, as excited about this when he was doing Blade Runner 2049 press as well. Like when he was doing Blade Runner 2049 press, he seemed excited, but not terribly excited. Same as when he was doing press for Shrinking and 1923, his 2 latest TV projects. He seemed excited about them, but not that excited. But then when you watch him talk about Indiana Jones 5, whether it was at Disney Expo last year, you know, online, or whether it's just in interviews, he seems very excited about this project. More excited than he's ever been before, as far as I'm aware. Like, I remember watching him in interviews for Force Awakens, and the thing he was most excited about was the fact that he died in that film, the fact that his character died in that. So yeah, Harrison Ford seemed very excited about it. You've got John Rhys Davies returning as Salah, who was, you know, the character we last saw in Last Crusade. He was also in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And, you know, you've got so much going for this film. Spielberg is still involved. Even though he's not directing, he's still a quote-unquote hands-on producer. And also, there was some reports that George Lucas was involved in some of the creative decisions. And you've got Kathleen Kennedy producing. Say all about Kathleen Kennedy. Love her, hate, whatever. She was involved in the previous 4 Indiana Jones films, though. And I know not everyone loved the 4th Indiana Jones film. I get that. But she was involved in Raiders. She was involved in Temple of Doom. And she was involved in Last Crusade. 3 amazing films, in my opinion. And one thing I haven't mentioned as well is that I'm a huge bloody Indiana Jones fan. I love the Indiana Jones films. Love them to pieces. Love Raiders. Love Temple of Doom. I love how Temple of Doom is just so in your face as well. It doesn't stop from start to finish. Honestly, start Temple of Doom, you're thrown into this musical sequence, and then there's this chase through Shanghai, then a plane's crashing, then you're in this temple, and it's getting dark, and it's just so good. And I love Temple of Doom so much, but my favourite Indiana Jones film is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. In fact, That is probably my favourite film of all time. I talk about this quite a lot on this channel. I say it's between that and Empire Strikes Back. George Lucas was involved in both, so that makes a lot of sense. I'm quite a big fan of George Lucas. But no, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is probably my favourite film of all time. And so, naturally, I've been very excited about this film. And also, another reason I'm very excited about this movie is the fact that Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, even though I don't love that film, that was the first one I remember seeing at cinema. And I remember just being enthralled by it when I was young. I think I was only about 5 or something when I saw it. I can't remember now off the top of my head, but I was dead young when I saw it. And it was one of the first cinema experiences I remember, if not the first cinema experience. And just being absolutely amazed by what I was watching on the screen. And that film really got me into being an Indiana Jones fan. I remember seeing that movie and collecting loads of Indiana Jones memorabilia back in 2008 when that film came out. And so I was always waiting for somewhat of a sequel to that film for a very long time. And even though I don't want a direct sequel to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I don't think anyone does now, I'm excited that we're getting a somewhat continuation of that story. Like, it's not going to have Mutt in it. You know, Mutt's not going to be in this new Indiana Jones. Mac's not going to be in this new Indiana Jones. Oxy's not going to be in this new Indiana Jones. You know, some of the characters from that previous film, from Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But it's a continuation of Indy's story from that film. We're going to see where his marriage is with Marion. We're going to see where he's now living after the events of those films. We're going to see how, you know, the events of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull affected him. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But, you know, I'd like to see if that's going to happen. I'd like to see a continuation of the Indiana Jones story. I just want to see it, you know. I want to see a grand finale, and I wanted to see it for such a long time. And I've been waiting for this film for 15 years, ever since I saw Kingdom of the Crystal Skull at the cinema. And I absolutely loved it back then. I don't love it now, but I loved it back then. And Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the new Indiana Jones film, premiered at Cannes Film Festival. I think it was on May the 18th, the day before my birthday, actually. And it premiered there, and according to reports, it got a 5-minute standing ovation, which isn't amazing for Cannes Film Festival, but it's pretty damn good, you know. Still, it's a 5-minute standing ovation. I mean, I don't know if they give standing ovations at every film there, but still, you got a 5-minute standing ovation. Harrison Ford was crying when the standing ovation was taking place, and I've never seen Harrison Ford get that emotional, general about a film he's been involved in. You know, he never got that emotional about Star Wars, and that is probably still the highest grossing franchise of all time, though Marvel might have surpassed it now, but still, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, Harrison Ford got very emotional, and I remember about 10-15 minutes, maybe in half an hour after the film premiered there, the reactions started to leak online, not leak online, but started to spread out online, on Twitter and whatnot, saying that the film was really good. You know, there's a lot of people half an hour after they saw it were tweeting and saying, redemption, Indiana Jones is saved after Crystal Skull, this film is great. There were some people saying, well, I really liked Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, it's a really fun film, it's great, and everything like that. However, about an hour after the film premiered, though, about half an hour after some of those early reactions came out, a lot of the reviews came out for the film, and a lot of major news sources were criticising the film, tearing it apart. A lot of film critics, which I admire and I follow on the likes of Twitter, were not fans of the film, to say the least, and it was not getting good reviews. It was getting bad reviews. It was not great, and I was quite disappointed when I was reading some of these reviews and some of these responses. Some people saying it's worse than Crystal Skull in some reviews, some people saying that it's just a bad movie, and, you know, a lot of, well, there was one review actually, which I only read the title of, but it said something like, too cheesy, too silly, and doesn't have the magic of the first 3 Indiana Jones films. And yeah, that was rather heartbreaking to read some of those reviews. You know, it still had its positive reviews, don't get me wrong, there's still people who liked it, but there were also people who didn't. And a couple hours after the film came out, it received a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I should say off the bat here, about Rotten Tomatoes, I don't totally trust Rotten Tomatoes. it's useful for certain things, for getting a general consensus on a film, because obviously you get the audience score on there as well, and sometimes that's useful. But also, Rotten Tomatoes is only representing a certain percentage of critic. Like, not every critic in the world, not every film critic in the world is on Rotten Tomatoes. And also, there's this perception of Rotten Tomatoes that if a film gets under 60%, it's bad. And that's just not the case. You know, there's been plenty of films in the past which have got under 60%, under 50% and whatnot on Rotten Tomatoes and have done rather well, and people have really liked those movies. I mean, take a look at Bohemian Rhapsody. That got, I think, 53%. That film ended up winning Oscars. I love Bohemian Rhapsody. Hook, the Spielberg film, that film's grown on me. I really like Hook. I have this really comfortable feeling whenever I watch it. You know, many people liked the first Venom film. I personally didn't, but that got a low critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The Greatest Showman, which became this sensation, this phenomenon, you know, that got a 50% or 52% or something like that on Rotten Tomatoes. People ended up loving that. Christmas of the Cranks is, in my opinion, an enjoyable film. That got a low Rotten Tomatoes rating. The original Jumanji with Robin Williams, that got a low critic rating. National Treasure with Nicolas Cage, that got a low critic rating when it came out on Rotten Tomatoes. The first two Mummy films with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, they both got bad critic ratings, and I enjoy both of those movies quite a lot, particularly the first Mummy film. The first Space Jam, which I think is an enjoyable film, not great, but it's enjoyable, that got a low critic rating. And Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull got a great critic rating, got critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And look how that film turned out. It got like a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, and that film's not that good, you know. So just because a film has got 50% or lower on Rotten Tomatoes doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. There's been some people online, you know, screenshotting the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and going, Indiana Jones 5 is bad, Lucasfilm is doomed or whatnot. And in reality, just because a film's got 50% on Rotten Tomatoes doesn't mean it's bad. Because also, there's 50% of people who like the film still. You know, it's split. It's literally the definition of mixed reviews, because there's 50% of the critics who put their review on Rotten Tomatoes who liked the film, and then there's 50% who didn't. Yes, there is 50% of the people who didn't, and that needs to be emphasised, and I will go into that a bit more later, but there are 50% of people who did. You know, the people who were praising the film, who really liked the action, thought it was energetic, really enjoyed how it didn't focus too much on nostalgia, but did it to the right amount. And there were people who liked the film. Empire said that it was a good film. I've got it down here, some of the news articles that said it was quite good. Just give me a sec. Hold on. I think Empire, like I said, gave it a good review. Vulture gave it a good review. Deadline gave it a good review. These are big news articles, news sources and whatnot. The Independent and The Guardian, these sources all gave it good reviews. Not great reviews. I think The Guardian only gave it 3 stars, but that's 3 stars more than if it gave a bad review, you know. It's not a bad rating, especially for The Guardian. And various other outlets have said that the film was good, and they praised it in nostalgia, like I said before. It's action. The John Williams score is one thing which keeps getting praised, which I'm very happy about. You know, regardless of the movie, we're getting another John Williams score, which I'm very excited about, especially another John Williams Indiana Jones score. Like, don't be wrong, I love John Williams' score for The Fablemans, but it's quite a serious score, and I'm looking forward to hearing a John Williams score which is more energetic and action-packed, just, you know, in the themes that are used, and gets your what I'm trying to say at the top of my head, gets you adrenaline pumping, you know what I mean? And also, there are a lot of people praising Harrison Ford's performance in the film as well, saying that it's one of his best performances in the Indiana Jones franchise, and there's a lot of people saying that it's an all-round entertaining film. And so, there are 50% of people on Rotten Tomatoes, and you go online, there are 50% of people who like the film. You know, maybe not just 50% actually, because I dare say not all the people who like the film put their rating on Rotten Tomatoes as well. Like I said, Rotten Tomatoes is useful for getting a general consensus on a film, but it's not always useful. I don't use Rotten Tomatoes that much, to be honest. I'm using it for this video today to emphasise my point that it's split. 50% people like it, 50% people don't. But I often don't use it, and when I come to a movie, I don't like looking at critic reviews in general. I'm going to get onto that a bit later. But going back onto the whole 50% thing, you know, there are 50% of people who don't like the film, though. But one thing to remember about this 50% of people who don't like the film is that these are critics who watch it at Cannes Film Festival, which is one of the, if not the most prestigious film festival in the world. And there's a lot of films that have been premiering there, which I think are very different than Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I mean, maybe not, I don't know, but like Jonathan Glazer, who has got a new film he premiered there. And Jonathan Glazer is an interesting filmmaker. I've only seen one of his movies. I saw Under the Skin. But it's a very different film than Indiana Jones, you know. And I imagine his new film that he premiered there, I don't know for certain because I haven't seen the film, but I imagine it's quite different than Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I imagine Scorsese's new film that he's just premiered there, Killers of the Flower Moon, which, you know, got a huge applause and like 9-minute standing ovation. I imagine that film's great. And Scorsese, one of the best filmmakers, everything like that. But I imagine that film's quite different than Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Wes Anderson's new film is premiering there, or by the time this video will come out, you know, it's already premiered there. That film is going to be quite different than Indiana Jones. It's Wes Anderson. I love Wes Anderson films, but the chances are Wes Anderson's new film, Asteroid City, is probably quite different than Indiana Jones. You get the point I'm making. I think Indiana Jones is a bit of a change, maybe, from what people usually see at Cannes. I mean, I might be wrong there. Maybe I'm speaking out of depth, but still, you understand the point I'm making. It's premiered at quite a prestigious film festival, so the bad reaction from certain critics, you know, these critics might be snobby. There's one critic I follow on Twitter who's often quite funny, and I quite like when I listen to his reviews whenever he does them online and fills in for Kermit and Mayo. The critic I'm talking about, the way is Robbie Collin. I quite like him. You know, he's a good film critic, but I often don't agree with him. And that's the other thing as well. You know, the 50% has actually got me more excited about the film. The fact that people are split, and the fact that there's a lot of people just really disliking it, but there's a lot of people liking it as well. That's got me excited because, you know, I'm either going to go into this film and get along with it, or I'm not. I like films as well where the critic rating is a bit split. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't, maybe you do. Where you're not totally sure whether you're going to like it or not, but you're excited to see how you're going to feel. But, you know, it needs to be emphasised that there are people disliking the film. And that is disappointing. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not. It's actually incredibly disappointing. Because I thought with James Mangold at the helm of this one, I thought that with the time and money that they put into this movie, you know, it was originally meant to come out last year, they delayed it, so I thought they were doing a lot more work on it, maybe polishing it up, doing more, I don't know, just doing whatever on it. With the time and money they put into this film, I thought it was going to be great, and I thought it was going to be an absolute banger, an amazing finale for the Indiana Jones series, but apparently not, and that is disappointing. I'm not going to sit here and say it isn't. In fact, it's heartbreaking, because I want this film to be so good, and I want people to love it. I want it to be one of those films which people can look back on now and say, you know, Indiana Jones 5, aka Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny, that film was great. I don't want it to be another Kingdom of Crystal Skull, but it sounds like it is going to be another Kingdom of Crystal Skull. And if you do like the film, you're going to have to really defend yourselves, because there's going to be people now really hating on it, and sometimes I just don't like it when there's certain people online who make you feel bad about liking a movie. You know, I am somebody who enjoys Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. I'm somebody who enjoys, in fact, loves The Last Jedi. I understand those films have their faults, but I love them. You know, I don't love Rise of Skywalker, but I like those films, that's what I'm trying to say. I at least get entertained by them, enjoy them. But there's people online who make you feel bad for disliking those films. And I'm not going to call these people out because that's not what this channel is. But I don't want another situation like what's happened with the Star Wars sequel trilogy that happens with Indy 5. I don't want that. I want to watch Indy 5 and just feel good about my opinion. You know what I mean? I don't want to watch Indy 5, enjoy it, then go online after and feel like I shouldn't have enjoyed it because there's people out there telling you not to, telling you the reasons why these films are bad. And don't be wrong, if you don't like a film, that's fine. I've not liked many films on this channel. Totally fine. But it's when you make other people feel bad about it. Like whenever I review a Marvel movie and I don't like it, I always say, if you like it, that's great. That's awesome. I'm so happy for you. But I also... I hate when I watch film reviews who I admire, some as well, you know, some which I admire, and they make you feel bad for liking something. And I'm afraid it's going to happen with Indy 5, and it's actually pushing me off social media and online in general. So if you can hear a bunch of bikes going past, by the way, it's a really sunny day outside as we record this video, and so a lot of people clearly got their motorbikes out on the road, sorry. But yes, sorry if you can hear some noise interference. But back onto what I was saying, you know, I'm getting offline now. I'm starting to transition to being offline a lot more. I'm deleting a lot of social media because I don't like the way people make you feel bad about disliking things nowadays. I don't like this whole idea. And don't get me wrong, I love the subjectivity of film. But that's the thing, it's subjective. And if you like something that someone else doesn't, then enjoy that, you know. Don't try and get them to like it if they don't. But also, if you dislike something that someone else likes, then also enjoy that as well. Don't make it that you're trying to get this person to dislike that thing. I'm afraid that's going to happen with Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny. And, you know, because it already happened with the latest two Star Wars movies for me. Last Jedi wasn't that, you know, but you understand what I'm saying. It's happened with the Star Wars sequel trilogy for me, and it's made me feel bad for disliking, for liking those films. And I'm afraid it's going to happen with Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny. I'm afraid that's going to happen. Back on to what I was saying about the reviews, though. You know, like I said before, there's 50% people who like it, 50% people who don't. But also, a lot of films as well, which have received high critic ratings on Rotten Tomatoes in the past, have not been great in my opinion as well. You know, it's all subjective. Just because a film gets a really high critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be great. You know, Killers of the Flower Moon, Scorsese's new film, has just received a 95% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes as I'm recording this podcast today. And that's meant to be good. But that doesn't mean I'm going to like it. It's 3 hours and a half from what I've heard. And, you know, sometimes I struggle with long movies. Sometimes I do, I'm not going to lie. And I didn't love The Irishman. And so, you know, just because Scorsese's new one is meant to be a masterpiece, as I've read many reviews, I've read many titles and many reviews say, doesn't mean I'm going to think it is. And also, I've loved all the Scorsese films in the past. Some Scorsese films I adore to pieces. Goodfellas, Casino. There's one on top of my head that I'm forgetting right now, which is a very different one for him. But there's some Scorsese films which I absolutely love. But then there's some that I don't. I'm not the biggest on Mean Streets. And there's another one I've got on top of my head right now. God, my head's in a bit of a mess today. I'm recording this on a Sunday, so that's why I'm never feeling the best on a Sunday. But yeah, the other point I'm making, there's some Scorsese films that I just straight up don't like. But they got great critic ratings. And also there's been many, you know, films on Rotten Tomatoes which have got great critic ratings as well, which I don't really like that much. Attack of the Clones, you know, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, has got like a 64% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is my least favourite Star Wars film. I mean, I have a bit of affection for it because I saw it when I was a kid, but it's not a good film. And also, I think that film premiered at Cannes, by the way. I would have loved to be in the audience watching Attack of the Clones at Cannes Film Festival. That'd been so... that would have been a very strange experience. Signs, the M. Night Shyamalan film, that got a great critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm not a big fan of Signs. It's got some interesting ideas, but it's not really for me. Iron Man 2 and 3, they've got great critic ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. Not a big fan of those films. In fact, a lot of Marvel movies, which people love, have got great critic ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. but I don't love them. And also Mystic River, the Clint Eastwood film, I just don't get, and that's got a great critic rating. Tar, which came out last year, hated that film. It's got a great critic rating on Tomatoes. GoldenEye, the Bond movie, don't like that film. Great critic rating. And like I've already mentioned, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of Crystal Skull has got a great critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and I don't really like that film. And so just because the film's got a great critic rating as well, doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be great. And so the fact that Indiana Jones and Dallas has got a 50% critic rating doesn't mean it's going to be bad either. You know, people need to realise this. 50% doesn't mean bad on Rotten Tomatoes. It doesn't necessarily mean great, but it doesn't mean bad. You know, if we've got a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, then I'd be thinking, oh God, what have they done to this new film? But it's got a 50%, or around about the 50% about the time I'm recording this podcast today. And there's some people who love it then. There's some people who just like it. I'm just emphasising that, you know? And even if it did get a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, that doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to love it, you know? That doesn't mean I am. And just because a film has a high percentage on Rotten Tomatoes, audience rating or critic rating wise, doesn't mean you're going to love it. It's just what other people are saying. And what they're putting onto Rotten Tomatoes as well. Rotten Tomatoes isn't everything. And people need to emphasise that. I'm using it for this podcast today because it helps emphasise the point I'm making. But it doesn't always work, you know. Just because Rotten Tomatoes say one thing, you might say the other thing. And that's totally fine. I don't understand why people use the site so much. It's useful, but I don't think it's as useful as some people make it out to be. But also, in terms of Indiana Jones views for the new film, I'm surprised by how annoyed I got by some of them. And I don't mean just because they've given it a bad review and I hoped they would give it a better review. It's all subjective. And, you know, they gave it a bad review doesn't mean I'm going to dislike it. You know, just because someone I like gave it a bad review, just because I knew a news outlet that I read gave it a bad review, doesn't mean I'm going to dislike it though, or whatever, you know. But what I don't like is the way that some reviews that I read for the film, I've read sentences from reviews, but the fact that some reviews have given away plot points of the film, and the film doesn't even come out for over a month. As I'm recording this podcast today, the film doesn't come out till June 28th, and I'm recording this right now on May the 21st. It doesn't come out for a very long while, and yet there's people spoiling plot points, and that infuriates me. I read one line from one review which told me something. It's only a light spoiler. It told me something happens towards the end of the film, and I read that and I went, because now when I watch Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I'm going to be waiting for that thing to happen later on in the film. I also read something about Indy's situation in this film in terms of where he's at, where the characters are at the start of the movie, and that annoyed me. And I'm like, I'm fine if people do spoiler reviews of this film. That's fine. Put it in your title though. I'm talking about these these reviews that I was reading of the film who didn't put spoiler in the title. They were just saying spoilers willy-nilly in their review, but it was meant to be a non-spoiler review. The film doesn't come out for another month. Why are people spoiling it? I don't like that. That really infuriates me. And also another thing which infuriates me about reading reviews, and it's probably just me, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that when I read something and it gets stuck in the back of my head when I'm watching the film, if you get what I mean. So basically, when I go to the cinema and I've read a critic rating, I've read a critic review, or I've listened to a film critic or somebody review the film and they've said something about it, maybe critique, maybe something they loved about it, and I'm watching the film in the cinema, on the TV or whatever, and I've got that thing that they've said in the back of my head. So, I don't know, say, and I haven't read anyone say this, but say in Indiana Jones, they say that, okay, Mads Mikkelsen's villain is pretty annoying to watch. I haven't read anyone say that, by the way, but say they do say that. Say if someone said that on a rating or whatever, on a review. That's going to be stuck in the back of my head whilst I'm watching the film. And I'm going to be like, is he annoying? Is he not? Whilst I'm not actually watching the film then, I'm just thinking about what that one person said. And so yeah, that often annoys me. That's why I'm trying to stay away from Indiana Jones reviews after reading a couple of them now, because they spoiled things, which really annoys me, considering the film doesn't even come out for over a month yet. I get you might not like it, but try and keep the review spoiler free though. You know, it isn't out. Yeah, it isn't out. And also, try and just not, I don't know, it's just for me as well, I'm trying to stay away from it because of what I said before, in that things often get stuck in the back of my head what some people say. Like, I often read film reviews and whatnot after the films come out, and there's some things I read about Indiana Jones 5 which I'm not going to say in this podcast today because I'm not going to go into spoilers, and also I don't really want to go into what some people have said about it, but they're already going to be stuck in my head when I'm watching the film and are going to affect my viewing experience, which I'm not too happy about. And I'm just going back to the whole thing, but I am a bit heartbroken on the reception of the film, because in the end I thought this film was going to be great. You have James Mangold directing, you've got so many creative people, great creative people involved. A report came out a couple of weeks ago from Variety which said that Spielberg had seen the film and that he absolutely loved it. He said something on the lines of, I thought I was the only person who could make a good Indiana Jones film after he saw it, but apparently not. That's what he said. And also, the fact that Disney had let the film premiere this early, you know, if they didn't have confidence in it, they wouldn't have premiered it over a month before it actually officially comes out. And I thought that showed they had confidence in it. And I thought that James Mangold being assigned a Star Wars movie as well to direct showed that they know they had confidence in this film, but they had confidence in any future James Mangold projects that might take place with Disney. Apparently not, according to some reviews. And the fact that it's got a bit of a mixed reception, you know, it has deflated my excitement a bit. It's still my most anticipated film of the year. It still is. But I'm not gonna lie when I say that I've tempered my excitement now. And that I'm a bit heartbroken that not everybody loved it. But you've got to remember with these things that first of all it premiered at Cannes Film Festival, and a lot of prestigious critics are there, a lot of snobby critics, and also the fact that yes, it's got a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, and yes, there are 50% of people who don't like the film, who have criticised it for its overuse of nostalgia, for its cheesiness, for its silliness, and all that sort of stuff. But there are 50% of people who liked the film as well. And also, you've got to remember that in the end, it's coming from, it's at a film festival where, you know, you're just going to remember that it's an Indiana Jones film in the end, and the critics there may not have really been in the right mindset to watch an Indiana Jones film there. Although saying that, now that I think about it a bit more, maybe many of the critics who were there were around when the first three Indiana Jones films came out though, and maybe they were the same critics who loved Raiders of the Lost Ark and were disappointed about this film. You're just going to remember all these things, you know, that even though the film has got a mixed reception, and so far, and this is only as I'm recording this at the moment, bear in mind in a month's time, that could change. The critic rating can go higher, the critic rating can also go low on the Rotten Tomatoes, or whatever, you know, more film reviews could come out about the film, they could be more positive, or they could be more negative, but as of now, you're just going to remember that there's only a mixed response, you know, and there are some people who are liking it, and I really want to focus on that because I want this film to be good. I don't want any film to be bad. I don't understand people online who, you know, literally pray for films to be bad, and then when the film is bad, they go on about how they feel vindicated. I'm just like, why? Why do you want cinema to be bad nowadays? Embrace cinema. That's what I'm like anyway. And, you know, the fact that Harrison Ford seems really excited about this one, really happy, more happy than he's ever been, and more excited than he's ever been about any of his previous projects, as far as I've seen, and the fact that we still got John Williams doing the score, and everyone seems to praise that regardless of what they think of the film, and the fact that we've got two other great leads in Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Mads Mikkelsen, in my opinion, the fact that we have James Mangold directing, and the fact that at least some people are liking it, is still giving me hope. I'm hoping for the best. I really am. But I'm also preparing for the worst. And if I don't like Indiana Jones 5 as well, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to get over it. Eventually I will. Eventually I'll get over it. But also, if I don't like it, I'm not going to dislike any James Mangold projects going forward. I mean, what I mean by that is I'm not going to set myself up for disliking any more James Mangold projects going forward. Like, a lot of people do that with Rian Johnson nowadays. Rian Johnson, who died to The Last Jedi, a lot of people hate The Last Jedi. And now, after Rian Johnson has made more films since The Last Jedi, people just dislike them because they dislike The Last Jedi. Like, don't be wrong. I remember when Glass Onion came out last year. If you disliked Glass Onion, that's fine. But I watched a review from somebody who disliked Glass Onion, and he brought up The Last Jedi, and I'm a bit like, why have you done that? Why have you brought up The Last Jedi? It's a completely different film, and it's, just because you've made a film in a franchise that you love, that you didn't like, doesn't mean that he's a bad filmmaker. He's made other great movies, and I think that people who get too obsessed on one thing, I think it affects their journalism. And so, if James Mangold makes another great movie after this one, and I didn't really like Indiana Jones 5 so much, that's great. I'm still really happy about that. I hope you understand what I'm going on about. I'm not sure if I'm totally making sense. I'm not gonna lie, my head's started to spin right now, I'm feeling quite dizzy. But this is what I'm trying to say. If James Mangold makes a good film in the future, but I didn't like Indiana Jones 5, that's great. I'm going to be really happy about that. But Indiana Jones 5, maybe James Mangold's bad day at the office. And everyone has that. Everyone's had a bad day at the office. I mean, I've never worked myself. But I have had bad days at university, bad days at college, bad days at secondary school in the past. And I know what that's like. Everyone has that one bad day when they've been doing work or whatever. And it sounds like Indy 5 may be potentially James Mangold's bad day at the office. But he's probably going to have good days at the office going forward. And I'm really happy for him that. It'll just be unfortunate that has to happen with one of my favourite franchises. So if the film is bad, it is what it is. I'll get over it eventually and I'll move on. It's only a movie in the end. And I love movies to pieces. And the Indiana Jones franchise, one of my favourite franchises. Look, I'm Indiana Jones hat here. But, it's only a movie, and we've still got 3 great Indiana Jones films though. Last Crusade, Temple of Doom, Raiders of the Lost Ark are all still amazing, regardless of how the film turns out. But I'm still hoping it's good, and I'm still hoping I, at the very least, still enjoy it. So I'm hoping for the best, but like I said before, I'm also preparing for the worst. We'll have to wait and see for when the film comes out on June the 28th. And hopefully, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is going to be good. Fingers crossed. Anyway, that's a podcast for today. So let me know what you think, and let me know about your excitement for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny in the description or in the feedback section or in the comment section, whatever, of this video or podcast below. And also, thank you as always for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do like, subscribe if you enjoyed the podcast. And also look forward to many more podcasts coming very soon on this channel. I will have another podcast about an Indiana Jones related property coming out within the next week or so. So look forward to that. It's not on the main 4 Indiana Jones movies as well. So a little bit of intrigue about what it's going to be about. But until then, guys, thank you as always for watching or listening. And I suppose this. So I'll see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.